Hello, welcome to Book Talk. I'm your host, Anthony Moirore. At Book Talk, we get to have authors come and tell us about their book. And today, it's a great day that we are going to have a great guest with us who is going to tell us some secrets. Are you ready for some secrets? and I won't say anything much more than that. I would just welcome our guest to the show, who is none other than Dr. Mindy Gewirtz. And I hope I got the second one right.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome to the show.
You're very delighted to be here.
Yes, and we are really honored to have you in our show. We love secrets, and we like to hear the secrets you have for us. And just as an introduction, Dr. Mindy is the president of Collaborative Networks, a leadership coaching and consulting firm. And she has much more to that. And we would better hear it right from her. So before we get started and go into the secrets that you have for us, can you give us a briefing of who exactly is Dr. Mindy?
Sure. Collaborative Networks is a leadership and executive coaching firm. Mm-hmm. And what we do is our clients are high-tech, clean tech, and organizational consulting that we do for them. Very often what we find is that we take emerging leaders and we turn them into world-class leaders through coaching and help them through that transition. So they start as experts in their particular fields, but then they turn into transformational leaders. And what we also do, and then we do that through coaching, we do that through leadership development, and we also do that through organizational change. So think of it as a 3D chess game. So it's very contextual. So we'll coach individuals, we'll coach teams, we'll redesign organizations. And so here's the philosophy that we have. If we just coach individuals, but we don't change the system in which they operate, guess what? What you'll have is a bunch of totally distressed individuals, right? Because the system's not changing. And that's what often happens. If you change the system, but you don't change the individuals and how they work in the system, you don't have sustainability of that change. So we like to work with all of it, with the whole ecosystem whenever we can. And we always start where the energy is. Sometimes it's at the top, sometimes it's at the bottom, and sometimes it's in the middle. But we always try to work at all three levels in order to create that sustainability. So that's a little bit about the work that we do. Okay. And also, for myself, I love to teach. And so I've been teaching at Lewis University, and I love to write. And written a couple of book chapters. And during the pandemic, I said, no more book chapters, and have recently written the book, Conversation Secrets for Tomorrow's Leaders. 21 obvious secrets that leaders just don't use enough.
Beautiful. So here comes the secrets, and we are ready.
Yeah, these will be kind of the secrets that
the conversation secrets for tomorrow's leaders. And what I want to believe is that all of us are leaders in one way or the other. We may not have an organization, we may not have a school or a college to manage, but we are leaders. I hope you agree to that.
I certainly do, because in everything that we do, we are leaders, whether in your own home, whether in your school, in your community, because we believe that leadership is distributed and it's not just at the top. As a matter of fact, philosophically, that's what we try to do in organizations, to create distributed leadership throughout the organization,
Oh,
because
okay.
that ensures an organization's future.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, I understand why you tell us about the 3D and the three levels that you pay attention to. Whereas I've met some trainers or coaches who just concentrate on the leaders and then they let them do the work for themselves. Now you pay attention to all the levels because you believe that leadership is essential in every level of an organization or
Absolutely.
a family, a school, whatever it is.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
As a matter of fact, what we've discovered ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and what we know is very often if you just start at the top and you let them take charge and you go away, like very often consulting companies do,
Mm-hmm.
nothing happens.
Uh-huh.
No. You know why?
Why?
Because what happens is they will do it like, okay, here's the fiat, here's what we want you to do. Now go make it happen. And it becomes flavor of the month.
Ah.
And it doesn't become systemically embedded into the organization.
So
So,
yeah, so your job is to follow it up until you discover that the last person in the organization is actually following the system.
yes. So
Uh-huh.
we have the teams, the middle managers. Remember, it's the middle managers who really are the ones who, they're the rubber that meets the road. So
Mm.
you've got to have the buy-in at the top,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise it'll never happen. But you also have to have the buy-in in the middles, because the middles are the ones that are going to help to distribute it to the people that really it impacts.
Mm.
So what we do is
Mm-hmm.
we coach the middles, we develop the teams in the middles, and then we also bring the training to the folks who really have the everyday job to make the work happen inside the organization. Then you can really have the transformational change that we're talking about. And
Mm.
the same thing with the conversations that people have. And
Yeah.
that's why we chose conversational secrets.
Okay. So let's look at it this way. You've been and even what you're talking about right now is about organizations, and but we've talked this is employable in any other different areas in life. Now, right with us here, we have several viewers who have tuned in,
Ah,
and others are going to watch us or even listen to the podcast from the platforms that we upload it to. And by the way, at this point, I can let every viewer or listener know that we are on every favorite podcast that you have, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, all of them, it's available. Search for Book Place, or rather Book Talk at Book Place, and you'll get it. Or go to bookplacemedia.com and click on the link that will drive you to the platforms. So we have one Peter Karanja saying we have a very impressive chat. He's very overjoyed over the chat already. Now, the question is, Peter, and maybe other people who may be watching us and don't have those organizations, and we say those secrets can be employed in our home, in our jobs where we are employed. We are not the managers. We would love to hear those secrets. So I won't talk much. I'll just listen. Please give us some of them, if not all of them, because we need to get the book to read all of them. But please give us a few.
okay.
Yeah.
So the biggest secret of it all is the neuroscience-based secret.
Okay.
And that is that we tune into our brain and we train our brain,
Mm-hmm.
because the brain is really the beginning of the conversation. So
Mm.
if we can train our brain, then we really will be able to master the secrets. And I'll give you an example. What happens very often in conversations is we get derailed. And why do we get derailed? because we get angry, we get emotional, something happens, a trigger, and we say to ourselves, okay, my boss just asked me to come into his office. My boss never asks me to come into his office. He must, or she must really be upset with me. And something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened yet. You just got an invitation to the boss's office, but the mind, the brain is already making up a story about what it may be. And you may be right that that's what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
but you also may be wrong. However, the way we're hardwired in terms of our brain is to always focus on the negative.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very good reason for that. And that's because we're trained to kind of watch out for predators. So because we're trained to watch out for predators, our brain is always looking, oh, who's on the lookout to hurt me? Now, today, it's not the bear coming out from behind the tree,
Mm-hmm.
but the brain doesn't know the difference between the bear and the social predator, or in our day, kind of what we might call as a social threat.
Mm-hmm.
So the brain right away gets a signal from the amygdala. So think of this as kind of the brain,
Mm-hmm.
kind of our brainstem, our prefrontal cortex.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is the amygdala, which is very, very old brain, millions of years older than our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain.
Okay.
And right away, the amygdala says, okay, I know what the real reason is. And the amygdala, together with our kind of reptilian brain, which kind of, okay, instinct, we know what it is. We're getting our adrenaline up, and the cortisol starts flowing through our blood.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens when that neurochemical gets triggered, right? And we start getting all upset. And then we go into the office and we're all anxious and we're all already upset that we're going to have some sort of an attack. And when we come in and we're like that, it's really hard to let go of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if our boss does say something to us like, I've been waiting for a few weeks for your report, what's happened? We right away kind of rush into like, yeah, I knew something was coming bad. And we might rush into a defensive mode because our executive functioning isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens, the secret here is that it takes 0.07 seconds for the executive function to kick in. So if you can just breathe 10 seconds, just quietly breathe in and breathe out, get your body calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
The executive function can actually kick in and say, okay, I can respond to this differently than when I think I'm being punched in the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And stop defending myself and instead start listening in a different way. So the secret here is before you go into that office and have the conversation, that you create the intentionality instead of just instinctually going into that conversation in a way you always do, in that kind of primitive attack mode. And if you use your executive function, you can have a very different kind of conversation. So that's one example from a neuroscience-based way.
Beautiful. So 10 seconds before I respond to any question, request, or invitation. And it's going to change everything. That's good. That's good. So that's one of the secrets, and we have 21 obvious secrets, leaders,
Yes.
and then you say they don't use enough. And I thought being the secrets, and these are the secrets that make the majority of leaders being whom they are. So why do you say they don't use enough?
Okay. Because these secrets are not rocket science.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like, oh, I never heard of that,
Mm-hmm.
or oh my God, that's so brilliant. They're kind of, oh, I sort of know that.
Mm-hmm.
I back of my brain sort of knows that uh, I shouldn't take, I when I give feedback to my subordinate that it shouldn't be in attack mode and there are different ways of doing it, yet we forget to
Okay.
put it in practice when we're in the moment, and we forget that when we give feedback and translating that out to your child, or having a conversation with your colleague or with your sister, and all of a sudden it comes out and it feels like an attack
Mm-hmm.
when you really didn't mean it to be an attack. You just meant it as feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when you look at the other person's face, you realize that they are experiencing an attack, or worse yet, you don't get it, you're clueless,
Mm-hmm.
and a rupture happens in the relationship because you thought you were being helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and the other person does not see it as helpful. They just see it as you attacking them
Mm-hmm.
instead of giving helpful feedback, and they don't hear it.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
amygdala just shuts it out because they feel attacked and closed off.
Ah.
So it makes a big difference. So we call it now, from Marshall Goldsmith, the famous coach, feed forward.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how gently we talk about the problematic aspect, it always feels like an attack.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we say, how do we want to do this differently in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Because the brain, it's amazing. When you tell the brain to stop eating, does it stop? No,
No.
at least my brain doesn't. The brain doesn't like to be stopped for anything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give the brain another option, like, okay, there's 7-layer cake in the fridge and there's an apple. Yeah, I'd rather have the 7-layer, and maybe I'll choose the 7-layer, but at least I know I have an option and I can intentionally make a decision. But if I only have 7-layer, I'll never get to intentionally choose a different option.
Mm-hmm.
So if the brain has an option, it's more likely to listen to that option. And that's what happens. That's what we have to tell our brain. Think about it this way as a
Mm-hmm.
metaphor. If you're a downhill skier,
Yeah.
you look at all the obstacles and say, oh, I got to remember not to do this, not to go that obstacle, not to look at that obstacle. No, because if you look at them, then you're going to fall into those obstacles because the brain remembers what you want it to remember. And if you're remembering all those obstacles, guess what? That's what the brain will remember, and you'll fall in them.
Yeah.
So the athletes are taught, look at your goal. And if you look at your goal, and a downhill skier looks to the end and says, how visualizing how I'm getting there, not how I'm going to avoid the obstacles to get there, but
Okay.
positive way to get there. And the same thing is with feedback. If I can help an individual understand how in the future they can get to where they want to go differently than what they've done now,
Mm-hmm.
that's taken as, oh, I can do that without feeling attacked that I did something wrong before.
Oh, and I agree to that concept where you talk about not focusing on the obstacles, because someone told me that whatever you focus on magnifies. So if I'm told avoid this and I focus, and that's what I'm talking to myself in my mind about that obstacle, that is where my focus is, then I'm likely to hit that because it's going to be magnified in my mind.
Absolutely. Because the
Yeah.
brain is lazy. We have
Mm-hmm.
very lazy brains.
Mm-hmm.
So what you tell it and what it thinks you want it to do, it'll do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the magnification piece of it.
Yeah.
So a lot of these secrets are really understanding how our brain works.
Mm-hmm.
And once we understand how our brain works, we
Mm-hmm.
enlist our brain to be able to help us to do it. And it's amazing what a difference it makes.
Yeah.
So it's the secret of understanding and training our brain,
Mm-hmm.
which is so magnificent. We just don't even recognize how we can help to change the way our conversations go by using it.
Mm, I
That's
understand. I understand and I accept that. So the first secret that you gave us was a 10-second pause. Or how do you call it? If I may have to remember, I can call it 10-second pause myself.
I love it. That's great. You
That's
can
great.
certainly.
Okay, let's have another secret, please.
Okay. Another secret might be asking when you want to be able to think about yourself as you get different kind of conversations. For example, let's take there are 3 levels of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
The first level of conversation is, I just want to give over information. And that's very much, we send emails, we have conversations, kind of a little bit like here.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind is very straightforward. We listen and we understand what we're saying. It's a very straightforward kind of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The second level of conversation is one where we try to influence each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we understand our position and we're really not so much interested in the other person's position per se, except how to influence them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're listening to reply
Mm-hmm.
so that we can influence them.
Yeah.
We're not listening to understand. We're
Mm-hmm.
just listening so that we can make sure they come to our point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it as you go to your car dealership. You really don't want to understand what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to bargain and influence them on the price. The third level of conversation is the one that is very important, and that is the one around collaboration. And that third one is listening to understand the other person from their perspective. We
Mm-hmm.
understand our own perspective,
Yeah.
so you don't have to listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
But rarely do we listen to the other person with the idea that they're making sense to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I understand that they're making sense to themselves? And listening with that perspective in mind, rather than listening to see how smart I can be to respond to the question that they're asking.
Mm-hmm.
It's like standing under the same umbrella, as opposed to two people have an umbrella, they're standing next to each other and having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So we're under the same umbrella. What is he or she trying to say from their perspective? And that's where you have good collaboration. And that kind of conversation begets good collaboration. But it requires a different level of listening, and a different level of conversation emerges from that level of listening. So the secret here for conversation is a different level of listening, that third level of listening. Now, level 1 and level 2 are fine for other types of conversations. It's not that you never want to use them, but we really don't use level 3 enough because we don't think about it that way. So for example, we always have what we call an attributional error. When we make a mistake, right? We think, oh, we made a mistake, but we didn't mean it. We forgive ourselves.
Yeah.
When the other person makes a mistake, we're not so good at that. So we always want to try to kind of think in the way of understanding what the other person had in mind, rather than thinking in terms of what the error is of their ways. Mindy must be making sense to herself. What is she talking about with the spring business? Let me listen to understand. Oh, lazy brain. Okay, that's why. Okay, now I get it. As opposed to, I'm shutting off because I don't understand this whole neuroscience business. I think it's just, not real. So I'm not going to listen. So that's a real secret.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And to those who are joining us at this point, I would like to let you know that we are talking to Dr. Mindy. And Dr. Mindy has actually co-authored a book with other 2 people. I might have not mentioned this before, that you are co-author.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I have wonderful co-authors, Carrie Gallant and Steve Hamilton. Without them, the book wouldn't have happened. So thank you for that.
Yes, and the book we are talking about is Conversation Secrets for Tomorrow's Leaders. And we say that leaders can be any person, anywhere, that is in contact with any other person. Now you are a leader, wherever you are. And we've covered only 2 secrets up now. We call it the 10 seconds pause. It's not 10 minutes. It's just 10 seconds. So you can practice that. And the secrets that we've learned so far are practicable, as I get it. I mean, you could practice 10-second pause before you answer to a question, an invitation, an insult, or anything, and that can give you an upper hand on how to handle the conversation, because these are conversation secrets that we are getting to know so that we can converse better with our friends, our relatives, our family, our co-workers, our juniors. It's beautiful. The second one was to think at a higher level, or listen at a higher level, if I'm right. Listen at a higher level, where you are listening to understand, in order that you may know how to handle whatever it is that you're conversing about. So thank you very much, Dr. Mindy. I would like you to give us yet another secret. We know we have many, we may not exhaust all, and this is why we have to get the book, but please give us another one. We are really enjoying it so far.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And I am too. It's a pleasure to talk with you and to all of your listeners. I'll give you one on a team level.
Okay.
Very often in teams, we pay attention to the task. Okay, guys, we have these 3 goals and let's go and make them happen. What we don't do is pay attention to intentionality of the conversations and create a structure for how we want those conversations to go. So I'll give you an example of what we often do with our teams. We create, number one, operating principles of the conditions under which we do our best work. So it's not just about starting on time, ending on time. It's about making sure that all voices are heard. There's no such thing as a bad idea. And that whenever, sometimes, for example, we use red light, green light. In other words, if we see that someone is being inappropriate in their conversation, it's always about the work, never about the person. But if someone starts attacking, and it's when the amygdala hijack, we call it, when the amygdala is out of control and all of a sudden you hear the screaming and yelling that goes on. And we just go red light as a way to remind the person, in this team, that's not how we talk to each other. The types of conversations, we disagree with each other, we have conflict with each other, but when we have conversations with each other, we do it in such a way that it can be heard. Because once you start with the yelling and the screaming or attacking or bullying, then nothing good comes of that. And that includes leaders. Because very often they could be the ones that set the culture, that it's okay. And so we might work with the leader beforehand about changing the culture has to start with the leader inside a team, so that we have legitimacy to help the team come up with how they want to work and how the leader wants the team to be a high-performing team. So conflict and lots of voices, that's great. But treating each other with respect and psychological safety, which we know now is one of the indicators of a high-performance team, that means that I feel safe enough to bring up that conflict without people just coming down on me and attacking me and squashing me. Those teams really do the best. And we know that from the Google study and a lot of the work by Amy Edmondson in Harvard. So that's really important. So you create these operating principles and everybody agrees to work with them. So if someone kind of steps out of line, you point to the operating principle because the group agreed to the operating principle. Sometimes when I have high-level executives, we create a little kitty that if someone comes late, they put money in the kitty. And the other peers kind of tease them. $5 into the kitty. And even though $5 means nothing today, but it's the pressure from the peers. Hey, I showed up, you can show up. And you'd be surprised how that peer pressure works wonders. But the idea is that we respect each other's time, and respect in the team for time sets up a container of psychological safety. We don't answer our phones during this team meeting unless it's hugely urgent. You don't have to play that I'm so special that I have to answer my phone in these 45 minutes. You turn off your phone. And that means that I respect the others in the team. So when we have conversations in this team, it's a place where we know we can trust each other, because all that builds conversations of trust.
Yeah, beautiful.
So In terms of that, the trust then builds the foundation to be able to have good collaboration. So sometimes we kind of think, oh, that's just soft stuff, but it isn't. It's the foundation upon which a team can really build high performance into it. Because once you have that solid foundation, then you can build the house. You have the shaky foundation, you know, you may build the house fast, but it's going to fall like a house of cards. And that's kind of the working of the team conversations. That's so important.
Beautiful.
Another secret.
Before you go into the other secret, there's something I would like you to expound on.
Sure.
You gave us a statement within that no idea is a bad idea. Maybe you can put it as into a better perspective of how I should treat every idea coming. And when we are in a conversation and some ideas are brought up, how should I receive them? How should I view them in my mind such that I get it's not a bad idea, that I can move forward with myself, with my team, with my family? How do you digest this information to come out successful?
Okay, so, you know, everything that comes out of everybody's mouth in terms of an idea is not going to be, you know, the best idea. You know, it's not like every idea is a pearl. So what we'll often do is it depends, and we'll create a structure. So for example, if it's a brainstorming meeting where no idea is a bad idea, then we just put them on a flip chart, all ideas. Doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
And what we'll do is then we'll say, okay, no idea is a bad idea. So sorry for the background noise. It'll be off in a minute. Thank you. What we'll do is everything will go on the flip chart, and no idea is a bad idea because it's a brainstorming meeting. And we'll set up the rules beforehand then for how do you cull the ideas, because not all of the ideas are going to be used. So we might set up criteria for, okay, now we have these 25 ideas. What's the criteria we're going to use for the ideas that will make it to the next level? Okay, now we have criteria for the next level. Now how are we going to choose from these? Okay, we culled it down from 25 and we got it to 10. Now we need to get it to 3. How do we want to, you know, pick out the 10 from the 3 as a team? And the team may have more conversation about that now that they've figured out what's in the 10. And so one example might be, okay, everybody got 3 dots, and put your dot on the 3 top ones that you choose. And everybody stands up, puts their dots on the 3, and gets an opportunity to talk about why they did that. And then, for example, maybe walk around. The team can kind of look at everybody else's, they've heard everybody else, and see if anybody wants to change their mind based on what everybody says, and then figure it out together. So that might be a team exercise, but I think you're asking something different. I think what you're asking is, when someone gives a bad idea, how do you respond to that when it's not the best idea? So, for example, you know, if your child wants to do something and it's not the best idea for them to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And then the question is, well, how do you handle that? Not all ideas are good ideas in that circumstance.
Okay.
So the idea you brought up, Anthony, is very important. And that is the context. So in a team meeting, when you're brainstorming, all ideas are good ideas. When it's a parent to child, all ideas may not be good ideas. However,
Yeah.
how you respond to that does make a difference.
Yeah.
And when, let's say, parent to child, what you always want to do is validate. I know that all your friends are going to X venue and you really want to go. I hear that. I also know that at that venue, there's going to be, I'll make something up, that a parent might object to, whether it's drinking or pot smoking or whatever it is that they object to.
Yeah.
And our values in our home are not those values. And I know that you wouldn't, and you would be fine. And we trust you. Yet we don't feel that that makes sense to put you in that environment. How about we find something, a different type of concert that you can go to that's not known for that, and you can go with your friends. So you provide a context and an alternative, as opposed to saying, no, you can't go to that. And that's it. But if you, because you've got to be able to not only explain, as opposed to, I'm your mother and I make the decisions here and this is it. But if you can engage the person around understanding the context and even asking them what could replace that for you with something that would be of interest to you, that would be within our context, what would work for you?
No, I like that. And thank you for answering that. And the reason I think it's a good idea, that statement, is that when you tell your organization, your team, even your family that no idea is a bad idea, then you open doors for discussion. And people will not shy away. They will not hold something to themselves that could be beneficial or could be a danger somewhere if they did not come out with a message or the idea, the voice. So I think it's good to welcome every idea and debate it or validate it, as you're saying, in the area of family. So thank you very much for that perspective. And we are almost done. But you needed to give us another one and then we close the show. Please.
Okay. Sometimes in conversations, you get really stuck. One side says this, one side says this, and you're like, it's like a ping pong game. And you're like, how do we get out of this conversation that's like a ping pong game where, you know, this side says this side says this, and it just goes back and forth like this. And it doesn't seem to have an end. And it's going nowhere really fast. One secret of how to get out of that is to say, and these are two beautiful words, what if?
What if?
What if we did this? What if we did that? What's behind the what if is, what would it take for you to be comfortable, for us to move forward? because very often we don't ask that question.
Yeah.
We just go, no, this way, no, that way, no, this way, no, that way. We don't ask, really. I understand you want this. I understand you want that. Beyond that ask, what would it take? What small step would it take for you to feel like you're really being heard? You know, so you get at not the position, but what they're really looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes what they're asking for and what they really want are not the same thing.
Mm. Okay.
So what you want to be able to do is use the what if.
Mm.
What if we, and so when you're listening, this kind of piggybacks on what we did before. When you're really listening at that level 3 and understanding the person from their perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and you suddenly go, aha, now I understand. They got burned the last time they made a deal with someone and XYZ happened. That's why they're being such a stickler, because they don't trust that we're going to keep our word or something like that. So you can say something like, I understand that you've been burned before.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, trust us, we won't burn you. Well, they're not going to trust you because they've been burned.
Mm-hmm.
What if we did XYZ to help you feel comfortable that you're protected, so you won't feel like you're not protected in case something happens?
Mm.
Would that help you feel safer in doing this deal?
Mm-hmm.
Or what would help you feel safer so you can trust us in doing this deal? So again, it's training your brain to understand that conversations
Mm-hmm.
are not just, oh, let me influence them to my point of view. Let me negotiate to my point of view. But understanding from the other person's perspective and then giving them an option. And the what if is a very face-saving device, because, okay, that doesn't work. What else? You know, what if, what else? And those are another 2 very powerful words, because when you tell people what else, it's wide open for them.
Okay.
So using those words in the conversation, what if, what else, helps them to create that psychological safety, to build that trust, to be under the same umbrella instead of sitting on opposite sides.
Oh.
So all of these secrets
Mm-hmm.
are about understanding how our mind works, understanding and respecting the other person,
Okay.
and using that to have meaningful conversations that move things forward with individuals in a really good way.
No, beautiful. But at this point, I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, because in this aspect that you've described of 2 people who are back and forth, you've brought in a third perspective of this issue with a question, what if? Now, the question is here, what if you want to side with one of them, or rather you agree to the points or to the argument of one person, and you'd like to solve this instance, this case, this issue, without seeming like you're favoring one person or the other. like you're siding with one side. How do you go about, how do you bring in the what if?
Oh, so you're talking about a third person that is trying to resolve something,
Yeah,
not two people who are trying to resolve it with each other.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
the third
okay.
person. Because
Okay.
even that is what the perspective I had got in the beginning, is like you've come in and you got two people who you want to be a contribution to the conversation, and you bring in the what if. So, but and now here you want to side with one person.
Okay. So if you're a coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're supposed to be a third party neutral,
Yeah.
then you stay neutral
Okay.
and you say to yourself, I agree with so and so, but that's not my job.
Okay.
My job here is to stay apart and help them to get to where they need to go. And you know what we've discovered very often,
Mm-hmm.
that neither position necessarily is the one they agree on.
Okay.
But if we help them broaden the perspective, not make it this or that,
Mm-hmm.
but a third position, which the what if helps to bring about. Let's think about this more broadly.
Mm.
You want XYZ, you want XYZ. Instead of thinking, what if what if yours, think about what if we moved away from both of yours, but created a third thing
Mm.
that would really respond to all of yours. Is there something that could do that?
Mm.
So when you do that,
Mm-hmm.
then the mind begins to make a mind shift from this way or that way to other ways. And if you're the third person and you're the neutral person, that's really how you can help them. If
Mm.
you're a third person and you really side with the other person,
Mm-hmm.
one of the two, then you've got two against one, is what you're saying. Is that what you mean?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
So it depends. So if you're two people against one person, guess what? You know, it'll depend. If at the level, if you've got the boss and you've got two people here,
Mm.
that's a different power position than the other way. Two
Okay.
managers and one individual. Well, guess
Mm.
who's going to win that one?
Mm.
If you've got two individuals that got to help their boss, then you're managing upward, which is a different
Okay.
type of conversation. So let's say you're two individuals and you've got to convince your boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the two of you believe, and the boss is like, guys, that's never going to work. So the two of you, before you go into the conversation, you have to prepare to know, okay, we're going into the boss. He or she can say, no,
Mm.
we understand how the boss thinks. And he's going to say no for very good reason. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough priority in the organization, right? Those are the things that usually bosses will tell you for about just about anything that
Mm.
they don't think is a priority. So it's our job to come back with the types of conversations that will understand, that will help him or her understand
Mm.
that we get it. And here's the type of conversations that we can have,
Right.
which means that the conversation moves towards, we get you, we hear you.
Mm.
And so we're not just shoving our idea, but we understand that time is of essence. We understand money is an issue. We understand priority is an issue. And
Mm.
here's how we think about them so that they could be, when you go up and they're going to tell the boss that, that here's our very good conversation you can have. So we're prepared and think that way. So the more you think of how the other person, again, it's a understand how the other person is making sense to themselves, it goes back to that one, then you can help influence that other person. But it's about making sense from their perspective, not just, okay, how do we, we're two people, how do we, you know, just convince the third?
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. And we've been really honored to have you in our show. And
Thank you.
We thank all the viewers, all the listeners who listen to Book Talk at the Book Place. And before we go, I would like to mention one comment from John Kafuenyaga says, thank you, Dr. Mindy, for your great guide in that the contributor in our conversation seriously need to understand and consider the other person.
Yes, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate your comment. And if anybody wants to continue the conversation, you are welcome to reach out to me at Gewirtz, Gewirtz, at collaborative.networks.net. And you're welcome to get the book or the Kindle version on Amazon, where it's at. Yes, so thank you for that, John.
Yes, and we'll share the link, and all the other people who may come later, like Nemi has just responded and said, very impressive conversation. Thank you very much, Nemi, and every other person that is going to watch or listen later after we upload the conversation. Thank you very much. And as always, even when we are almost done with time, I'd like to hear a last word from all our guests. So can you tell us something that we can always remember in regard to what we've just talked today?
The conversations that you have are really important. And they can, whatever comes out of your mouth, in a sense, words build worlds, which is a saying of Judith Glaser. Her book is Conversational Intelligence, but they do. They can also destroy worlds. So use them wisely.
Beautiful, beautiful. Words build worlds, or destroy if you use them in the wrong way. Thank you once again, Dr. Mindy. We are really appreciative of you being here. And we'll share the links with the viewers and the listeners so that they can go and get the book, because you shared just 4 of the secrets out of the 21 that you have for us. So for those who are listening, please go get the book. And thank you.
Thank you. It was a privilege to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are honored to have you. And bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Okay.